I want to tell you something I'm a little bit embarrassed about. When my baby was 6 months old, I knew baby-led weaning was coming. I'd heard about it, I'd vaguely Googled it, and I thought, yeah, I'll look into that properly soon. And then suddenly it was 6 months and I was left scrambling. I was looking up textures, allergens, what to do if they choke, food prep safety, all of it all at once, with a baby who was ready to eat sitting right in front of me. It was really overwhelming and it didn't have to be. So if you're watching this before that moment, you're already doing better than I was. Or if you're already in it and you're feeling like I was, this is the video for you. Hi guys, welcome back. Look, I'm not a pediatric dietitian. I'm just a mum who loves to research and who has been through this all with my own kids. So as always, if you have a specific concern about your baby's development or feeding, speak to your GP or maternal health nurse. That's always the best first stop. What I can offer you is everything I learned the hard way and some things that I really wish someone had told me before I started. We're going to cover the gagging question that terrifies every new mum, what to actually feed your baby first, and why the nutrition side matters way more than people realise. How to set yourself up at meal times so they don't feel like a full-time job, and a few things about picky eating and meal refusal that will help too. If you're about to start your baby-led weaning journey, or you're a few weeks in and feeling a little wobbly, this one is for you. So let me paint a picture for you of what it looked like for me, because I think it'll help. I had a few months of knowing baby-led weaning was coming. I'd been meaning to read about it and I just kept not doing it. There was always something more important, a feed, a nap, or 100 other things on my to-do list. I told myself that I would get into it. Then my baby turned 6 months and I realized, okay, this is happening now. And in the space of about a week, I was trying to understand how to tell the difference between choking and gagging, which foods were choking hazards at this age, how to cut things safely, which foods were allergens, and how to introduce them safely. All of this while just, trying to keep a small human alive. Now, I don't want that for you, and it doesn't have to feel like that. The information is all out there. You just have to have it before you actually need it, not while you're desperately searching, in the 5 minutes that your baby's napping. And please, if you do one thing before your baby's first meal, it's to do an infant first aid and CPR course. Not because something is likely to go wrong, but because, having that knowledge sitting in your back pocket completely changes how you feel at mealtime. You're going to be more confident instead of terrified, and a nice calm energy at mealtime is what your baby's going to pick up on. Now, when your baby is developmentally ready to start solids, that's your green light, not the calendar. When they can sit up with minimal support, when they can hold their head steady, when they've lost that tongue thrust reflex where they automatically push food out of their mouth, and they're showing like a real interest in the food that you're eating. 6 months is the general guideline, but every baby, gets there in their own time. Some are ready at 6 months and others just take a little longer, and that's completely normal. So here's something all new mums need to know. Gagging and choking are not the same thing. And gagging is actually your baby's body doing exactly what it's supposed to do. When babies first start exploring foods, they're learning how to, move it around their mouth. Their gag reflex in those early months is actually positioned quite far forward in their mouth. This means they'll gag a lot more readily on things that compared to an older child or an adult. And it's protective. It's the body's way of managing food before the baby has fully developed the skills to chew and swallow safely. Now, I'm not going to pretend that watching your baby gag is easy, because it's not, especially the first, dozen times. But the signs to know the difference are really important. When your baby's gagging, their face will go red, they'll be retching and making sounds, and they'll often bring the food forward in their mouth and spit it out. They'll look a little bit distressed, but they can breathe. They can make noise and they can manage it themselves. Choking, on the other hand, is silent. If your baby's truly choking, they cannot make sound, they cannot cough, and they cannot breathe. That is when you act, which is why having that first aid and CPR information is very important. The other thing I want to tell you is that your confidence will grow really fast after you've been through a few weeks of mealtimes. Slowly, you start to relax because you've seen your baby work through the gag enough times, to trust their ability to handle it. Give yourself time to get there. It's a learning curve for your baby and for you. Okay, this is something I feel like doesn't get talked about enough in baby-led weaning conversation. Everyone focuses on how to offer your baby food, but I want to talk about what you're offering your baby. In the early weeks, it's really tempting to just, load up their tray with soft fruit and cooked veggie sticks, and feel like you've nailed it. And those foods are great, but babies, especially around the 7 and 8 month mark, actually need a lot more than fruit and veg can offer in order to grow and thrive. And if you're not including enough protein and healthy fat, they're not getting real nutrition to support brain development and like iron requirements. So one of the simplest things you can implement at every meal is aim to include a source of protein, a source of healthy fats, and then your fruit or veg. Now, let's be real, it won't be the perfect formula every single time, but as your general intention, you just go with that. So what does this formula look like on a plate? So let's talk about salmon and sardines. Both are brilliant for baby-led weaning. You've got, the salmon is mild enough in flavour that most babies can handle it. It's one of the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids that you can offer alongside sardines, and that really matters for brain development. You've got avocado, that's a great source of healthy fats as well, an easy texture for babies, and it's so versatile. You can serve it on its own or mashed in with some of that fish that I was talking about. You've got soft cooked eggs. Eggs are, so nutritionally powerful. You've got protein, choline for brain development, healthy fat, iron, B, vitamins, all in one little egg. So nice, soft, slow cooked meat pulled into strips, or like a nice mince meat fingers work really well for textures that babies are learning to chew, and it's a great source of heme iron. So I must state that fat is not something to avoid for your babies. Full fat is everything. It's not the time to be choosing low fat yogurt or cheese. Healthy fat is essential for their brain development, for energy, and for absorbing fat soluble vitamins. So you need to embrace it. So for more information on some great baby-led weaning first foods, make sure you check out my other video. I'll link it in the description below. Okay, let's talk about the actual logistics of baby-led weaning for a minute, because this is where a lot of mums can burn out, not because the food itself is hard, but because they're, treating every mealtime like a separate cooking event. And if you're steaming vegetables or roasting them fresh for every meal, cooking protein separately 3 times a day, and then cooling it down, in time for a hungry baby, you will exhaust yourself within 2 weeks. I know because I was doing this. The thing that changed everything for me was one big prep session, every 3 or 4 days. Some really practical things to batch prep are soft roasted vegetables. So cut up a bunch of sweet potato, carrot, zucchini, even beetroot. These will keep in the fridge for 3 or 4 days. And when mealtime comes, you're just going to grab a few pieces of veggies. You don't have to wait for them to cool down, and you can feed it to your hungry baby. It's also a really good tip to get them used to eating cold foods, because you're not always going to have the capacity to warm up their food for them if you're out on the run or doing errands. So veggie sticks straight from the fridge are absolutely fine. It's also nice and soothing on their gums if they're teething. Cook up a chicken breast, make some mince fingers, or have a packet of hot smoked salmon in the fridge. Shred it up, divide into small portions, and freeze what you're not going to eat over the next 2 or 3 days. If you need it from the freezer, just pull it out the night before and it will be ready by the morning. This also takes a lot of the decision making off your plate if you've got the protein ready to go in the fridge and freezer. And it's okay to feed your baby the same thing for 2 days in a row. Yes, variety is great, but if you're a busy mum with a full-time job, your baby's not going to mind. You can boil some eggs at the start of the week and just peel them as you need them. And don't forget, your baby can eat what the rest of the family is eating. You just played it a little differently. Somehow, I spent weeks treating babies' meals as this completely separate project, steaming veggies, making separate portions, timing it all around the family dinner, when actually most of what we were already eating was perfectly safe for the baby. You just need to set a portion aside to cool down, make sure everything's soft enough, and cut it up appropriately for baby-led weaning. Say you're making a slow cooked chicken and vegetable dinner. You've got soft cooked carrot there, some chicken tenders, and maybe a bit of sweet potato. Before you add in a bunch of seasoning or spices to the whole pot, pull out a small portion for your baby, shred the chicken into strips, leave make sure the veggies are in nice little finger-sized batons, and then that's a complete baby-led weaning meal right there, and it's taken you 0 extra time. If you're doing a stir fry, just set some of the protein aside and some of the softer veggies before you put all the soy sauce and the extra sauce in. If you're making a frittata, just cut it up into finger-sized strips for your baby. So your texture test is you should be able to squish the food in between your thumb and forefinger with a little bit of pressure, especially meat. That needs to be soft enough to do, and then your baby's gums will be able to handle it. Offer the finger length strips. It's something that they can easily grip. And the bonus of only cooking one meal is your baby's sitting at the table eating what everyone else is eating. The same colours, smells, and general experience. That family mealtime connection is there. Everyone's around the table eating the same food. It's one of the most powerful things for building a relaxed relationship with food from the very beginning. So whether you're batch prepping or serving the same meal as the family, the goal is having something nutritious you can put out in front of your baby without having to cook 3 separate baby meals from scratch every day while you're also doing everything else you have to. Okay, this is one no one warned me about, and it caught me completely off guard. So there will come a point in time around 10 to 12 months where a lot of babies will start refusing meals, or they're throwing their food, or sitting there happily for a few minutes and then just deciding they're done with the meal. When you serve up a beautiful, nutritious meal only to have it, thrown on the floor, it can feel really frustrating. And I want you to know that this is completely normal. Babies go through phases of being more or just less interested in food. Teething, developmental leaps, tiredness, just having a preference that day. all of it affects with how much they engage with a meal. And the research on picky eating is pretty consistent. A child might need to be offered a new food many, many times before they'll accept it. One refusal, even 5 refusals, doesn't mean that they're never going to eat that food. A few things that really helped me: keeping mealtime low pressure. This is important as they move into toddlerhood as well. If a food gets refused, don't react. Just move on. The more neutral you stay, the less mealtimes become a battleground. Have a backup that you know they'll eat. While you'll keep offering new foods, there's no problem in keeping things in the fridge that you know they will reliably accept. On the hard days, that's not failure, that's just being a realistic parent. And eat with your baby when you can. It sounds small, but it's really one of the most powerful things you can do. Babies learn by watching. When they see you eating the same food with enthusiasm, it signals to them that the food is safe, normal, and worth trying. I did not know this was a thing, and I feel like more mums should know about it. So, babies don't just know how to chew. At some point, you might notice your baby's just gumming things but not actually moving their jaw properly in a chewing motion. And there's actually a way you can help them learn. What worked for me was eating with my babies. So I would take the food off my plate, make sure they can see it at eye level, and exaggerate my chewing motion. So open, close, slow, deliberate, and very dramatic while making eye contact with your baby. Babies are incredible mimics. And, it felt really ridiculous in the moment, but it works. And after a few meals of doing this, they'll get the hang of it. It's one of those little things that no one really mentions, and yet it makes such a practical difference in their baby-led weaning journey. Baby-led weaning is one of the most instinctive, whole food ways to introduce your baby to eating. Yes, it takes some learning, and yes, the early weeks will feel nerve-wracking, but when you watch your baby reach for a piece of salmon or really go for a broccoli floret, something that they choose, something that they picked up and put in their mouth themselves, it's just so good to watch. You're not just feeding your baby, you're building their relationship with food from, the very beginning. And starting with real nourishing whole food, that is one of the best things you can do for them, in my opinion. Remember to please give yourself some grace as you learn, and you'll find your rhythm faster than you think. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help other mums find this content, and I would love to hear from you in the comments. Are you starting out with baby-led weaning? Do you have a tip that really helped you that you haven't heard me mention? Drop it below and I'll check it out. I will link my other baby-led weaning first foods video down below, and don't forget to grab your free guide before you go. Make sure you subscribe if you want more practical whole food content for your family, and I'll see you in the next one.